I told you to know about pensions. Thank you, Tom, very much for your leadership of the state and the country on this issue for a long time. So yeah, so we take a few questions and thoughts, and then we'll wrap up and talk about where we go from here. Yes.
Yes, I have a question for Tom.
Yeah.
My name is David Shallcross. Taught and ended my career as a middle school principal in Lincoln. For a while, I was the president of the Cranston Teachers Association. I am not anti-union by any stretch of the imagination, but I am definitely disappointed in the unions in the state right now who say they represent teachers and state workers, and they don't. But you made a statement about the funding. And if the gentleman that was here was accurate, and I don't know that he was, he said that the pension fund was fully funded in the year 2000. I don't believe that.
I think that's a little exaggeration, but it was better funded than it is now.
It was. You're absolutely right. It was. But it wasn't fully funded.
I don't believe so.
When I was the president of the union in Cranston, I had the privilege of working with a very fine gentleman who was on the retirement board in behalf of teachers. He said to me that the unfunded liability is almost a joke, and yet that's what was used to push this whole pension reform. Unfunded liability means that everybody in the system, if they all retired at the same time, what it would cost to pay their pensions. But that's never going to happen, ever.
Another way to say it, which might be a little better, is that the unfunded liability measures what the system will cost if you close it tomorrow.
That's right. And exactly right.
But and one reply to that is, oh my God, that's so large. What are we going to do? But another reply to it is, don't close it. Seems kind of.
To begin with, you don't even have vested interest in a pension fund until after you've gone a certain number of years. So those people have nothing to make a claim on other than their own money. And then it progressively grows until people finally do retire. So the argument that the unfunded liability in the state pension system was $4 billion back in 2011 was a false number completely. Completely. Was it unfunded? Yes. But did they have to pay it out all at one time? No.
Yes, I think that's exactly the right way to say it.
But that's what generated the discussion. The second thing, if you go back and look in 2011, if that came out politically, and I know we've got some politicians here, but if that came out at that time, before, a year before the election, the people in the General Assembly at that time would have been stuck with explaining how did you get $4 billion in debt in the pension system. They didn't want to explain that. And that's what generated this whole renewal. That plus a lot of other things, and you spoke very well about that. But there's another thing that people are not commonly aware of, and I get the letter to prove it. The General Assembly started making changes in the pension system in 2005. If we were in good shape in 2000, and all of a sudden they were trying to justify changing these things unsuccessfully. Why? Because they weren't putting any money into the system, what they called the ARC. It wasn't being put in. And all of a sudden, It got huge. They said $4 billion. Something less than that if they actually had to start paying it out. But it was still there, and it was panic. The General Assembly paid an attorney from law, his name escapes me, but I've got it in writing, and he did a study. And when he came back with the report to the General Assembly, he said, you might be able to make this change, that change, the other change. He said, but don't go anywhere near the pensioners. You'll lose. Well, he was wrong. They didn't lose. They should have lost. The Supreme Court had already issued a decision. A pension is a contract.
Yeah,
They did that in the Providence Firefighters Union decision. They said a pension is a contract and a COLA is a part of it. The state fought it. The unions went along with it. They met for an entire year behind closed doors without telling anyone what was going on. I'm not even sure you were involved in that. And you were the president of the largest teachers union in the entire state of Rhode Island. And you didn't know what was going on. And they sold out their members.
One of the problems that happens.
Well, the union kind of a person. I'm just saying this is the way it was.
I'll say one thing, and then I think other people will have.
I understand.
One of the things that happens is that accountants and actuaries have a sort of a penumbra of authority that they do a lot to protect. The fact is that they argue among each other all the time. They argue about all kinds of things. They argue about how to treat stock options, how to do depreciation. They argue about what kinds of mortality tables should be used in calculating pension liability. They argue about, and they quietly put numbers aside too. But the fact is that they get kind of touchy when people who aren't accountants and actuaries argue with them. But unfortunately, that's kind of what had to happen behind those doors, and largely I understand that it did not. But I think other people have some questions.
What they did, they had somebody come in and testify in court. I was there every day. And I'll tell you right now, you'd sit there and you'd be absolutely amazed because you couldn't understand a word they were talking about. So you couldn't argue.
Yep, that's
Read the transcript.
That's the thing that people should learn is that jargon is there to make sure that you know who's on the inside and who's not.
That's not.
It's very effective.
But the thing that bothered me,
I do think
I understand, and I just one more point.
Okay.
2 points. 2 points.
I'm still waiting for
The first thing that I will make, the first thing is, I was there, Farrell was there, and I'm sure there were other people who were there. And we were individually fighting the state and the unions to get our COLAs, and the court, for that matter, to get our pension back. The second thing is what I would say to you when you go out on the campaign trail. Not only did she move all that money to Wall Street, that's all the money that would have been spent in the state of Rhode Island if it had stayed in the COLA.
That's right.